Okay.
For the sake of the recording, probably you should screen share if we are going to talk about the document.
I think it's absolutely valid. There you go. Let me set up the view. Still nice to see you. Okay, so right now there's the work we've begun on the list of tools. Stephen, you were asking what's the status. We are discussing a bit separately on what should be the columns and categories of the list of tools. I've made a proposal, I'm refining it. It's not yet formalized, but it's, and I've been told by some people that I may go into too many details. So maybe we need to decide what are the really key characteristics. But I tried to see what are these tools about. There's refocus on our common goals in the CDL. What's the CDL about? Wish Tim were here. What are we trying to do? I think it's an important question. And there's a side question, which has not on this list, but I'd like to bring up. The CDL has a legal existence. Most of us have our own companies and exist independently of the CDL, if I'm not wrong. Do we want a kind of legal umbrella consortium as collective intelligence workers? I'm thinking of something fairly open and inclusive, but people who are working on collective intelligence and related issues, or do we want something CDL with its own governance structure, just us, which is a distinct thing. But I think if we are to accept, at some point we'll have to think about getting contracts together, and that may become an issue. But I just want to plunk that on the table as something to think about.
So far, CDL reflected that for me.
Sorry, what? Did not hear well.
Far CDL reflected that umbrella for me, but like if that depends on the goals of the CDL, of course.
Right? Yes, and I don't think we have a collective governance structure in the CDL.
But practically speaking, as long as there's no collective money coming in, that won't be needed either, as far as I understand. I mean, so if we're not going to start doing collective grant writing, I think it's a bit early to talk about this. Once we do, yes, it's relevant to do so.
I'm thinking about, should we start thinking about what we need to be able to do collective grant writing? Which is something to think about in the not too far future. I think, and anyway, I'm just thinking, we've been working together for a while. We've demonstrated somewhat painfully that sometimes we can work together and achieve some things, and sometimes not. So, but I think we have achieved a few things together, and if we want to continue that, it would be good to think about having the kind of entity existence and recognition. So I'm putting that on the table as another agenda item. Let me put this legal structure. But yeah, focusing on the common goals, what's in scope, what's out of scope. And I'm sure we all have agenda items we care about, which are out of the common scope, which is fine. But what is the common scope? I think there's a whole, I think this is related to the discussion of layers. I've made some progress on that, by the way, and I want to continue to discuss that. Completing the vocabulary list, we had decided to shelve it until we settled a few other issues. I don't know if you feel the conditions for getting back to the vocabulary list are met, because we did do other things. distinguishing the domain layers and the layer boundaries, modeling the layer boundaries, which goes further. And that's one of the construction. And as I said, I have progress on that. I have progress on defining components and priorities.
One of the reasons I was interested in doing the list of tools was exactly to get better insight into this. If you have a better overview of all the tools that are out there, then we can start saying what are all the tools that are relevant to CDL, and then we can start saying how can we do all of this in separate layers, boundaries, components, whatever you want to call it.
Right. The okay, so I'm really curious to see. Okay, let's discuss that more. There's probably related. There's visiting the website. I put the initials of people who expressed interest at some point about any of those, and feel free to add missing initials. In a way, refocus on common goals is what I'm trying to do here. And maybe this is too narrow, but we need to say what do we each want to do and make sure that it's in maybe this list, maybe another, but we want to have things listed and clarifying what was our respective purpose and what we think we can work on together. One thing you've said many times, Stephen, I think you're absolutely right. We need to agree to be a bit more strict about process. On the other hand, whenever we discuss process, we get into process meta discussions. So
well, a process has to be flexible, of course, but it's still good to have a process.
Yes,
and be.
I think what may happen is that if we break things up in subcommittees, each committee could have a committee leader to decide process in this committee. We don't have to have the same process in all committees. And it may get us out of the agreeing on process loop. This is from Felix's note. You're speaking about directing collective attention and coordinating unstructured communication, which both involve ranking algorithms as something you want to focus on. So I put it as a data item, 2 work items.
They can also go together. It's just like the whole social protocols thing. That.
Yep. Absolutely valid and important and this and that. Like I'm realizing I've been postponing thinking about ranking, but it's getting urgent for me even at the data model level. But that's another conversation. So yeah. And there's scoring of arguments, which is not the same as ranking. It's more what Bentley's trying to do is how do we aggregate opinions to determine something like truth scores, relevance scores, and all of this. And I did say, let's just open.
I think Jonathan is also in this field with his Bayesian reasoning.
Tim should join us. Let me just. Okay. Where were we? Yes. Hello, Tim. We were going through, I've basically taken the list from last week and I've made it into a document and trying to break it down and making it kind of the list of what are our shared goals after all. So I tried to be a bit less verbose in this list. It's the old CDL work package document. I've just repurposed it. That's my older one. So what you're, sorry, what you were saying, Felix, who else is working on scoring of arguments?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, yes, very much.
Collective Bayesian reasoning.
Totally.
Distributed Bayesian reasoning, yeah.
Yeah. So this is not about popularity. It's very much trying to use a kind of aggregated belief score, which is a different, including recursive effects, including all of this. I think a lot of us are thinking about that. And whether it's, as I said, Bayesian or causal or epistemic, the aggregation logic may not be the same in either case. And that's why I believe in distinguishing those. But thinking about this is certainly one committee's work. I don't know how, like, I think a lot of these committees will have things to work on in common, but that doesn't mean we can't start dividing work. I'm sorry.
I mean,
Yes.
put me on scoring. Even if the source is humans,
You can add
as
yourself.
the input. There's oh well, yeah. Even if like it depends on the source, but there's still the math, the algorithm for roll-ups and things like that, which interests me. And the model,
Okay.
it's the model of scoring.
Right. See, when I say modeling at the layer boundaries, of course, we have to agree what the boundaries are, but we still need a good argumentation model. We still need, I'm very interested in the kind of base entity model below the argumentation model, but that doesn't mean we don't also need an argumentation model. They're both needed. Those are layer boundaries. I didn't want to put them here yet, though maybe I should, because we're still discussing what the boundaries are. Yes, Steve.
You can put me on there, but I mean, trying to identify those boundaries is what interests me most. It's also, to be fair, if we can identify boundaries and agree on them, it's also what allows to identify these subgroups, because ideally you have the different subgroups working within one boundary. And
Yep.
All we really need to agree on is how they connect at some point in the future.
Yep. And it's possible that doing a kind of boundary diagram will help us doing the subgroup. So maybe that's the next thing we should take another stab at, boundary definition. I've certainly, as I said, progressed myself on boundary definition work. And again, everybody's welcome to put themselves. Is there something big missing in there?
Well,
I'm
for
sure
me, there's one I didn't comment last time you wrote on Slack because I was busy, but I think I attempted it a long time ago, but actually doing implementation work in an agile fashion. Like if we can agree, sure, a claim has text, then let's just implement the claim with text in whatever. And that may initially, since we each have our own tools, that may initially indeed be agreeing on JSON format, and then we can have separate libraries, each compatible with that format. But I think it would be useful to have more implementation work going on.
I agree totally. I put visualization as separate because I think there's a whole question of how best to represent the.
I'm not talking about visualization here. I'm only
No, I know. I
talking
put it
about
as separate.
domain.
I put it as separate.
And I don't know, Stephen, if you're thinking about this when you mentioned implementation experiments, but we have, quite a few people working on their own apps, so maybe this is different. But it might be interesting if we had a, kind of like a mastermind support group or accountability group where you can come on, kind of talk about what you're doing and just get advice on your individual project / experiment. So I don't know if anyone else would be interested in that.
I mean, yeah, just reporting what the state of the own projects, and not everybody has to join. We can just report. It's just like the people who have something to report join. That's it.
Yeah, and also kind of like a hot seat. So if someone's having a problem or wants feedback, a place to get feedback on your own.
I think we actually
like that.
did quite a bit of that over the course of the past years, right? And it has been productive.
Yeah.
True. That is something useful we've been doing. I agree totally. So, okay. Is
Yeah,
that
that's more like getting input on individual projects. Yeah, that's also relevant, but it's separate from collaboratively working on something.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was my question.
Yeah, so they're probably different.
Good. I put it under I wanted to. Good. I'm happy with that. This, I don't think I'll just put team because there's no reason to put initials on that, right? The there's some clear dependencies there, but that's okay. Given this committee, should we, like, I think we have our name on a lot of things. Maybe we should each decide what do we think is the, say, 2 top committees we should have, and then decide on 3 of them with the assumption that we won't all work on all of them or something like that. What's the 3 most urgent tasks? Or do you see dependencies? Maybe we should write dependencies first. This depends on that being done, trying to see what's the, because obviously I think that this depends on that.
Yep. And as I said before, I think working on the list of tools, it doesn't need to be finished, but I do think it goes hand in hand with distinguishing the domain layers.
Okay, interesting.
Because in a way, I mean, looking at all these list of tools, if not to see what people are doing and what needs to be supported, I mean, for me, it's getting an understanding of the domain.
Okay, so should that be 2, maybe 1 committee on the tools so that it's still distinct, 1 committee on the main, and 1 committee, I think, on the, maybe the scoring stuff is obviously needs to happen in parallel. Like I'm looking at Felix and Bentley's activity. I think we should spend time on that because there's too much chafing at the bit there. Does that sound like 3 good committees for a start?
Can you highlight the 3?
Yes. So it would be the list of tools, still working at the main layer, because I think that's kind of, there's a lot that depends on that. And I'm putting this one because you think it's parallel, but I mean, right now that's your input and my input. If people have objections, I'm really interesting. And I'll put scoring as the main one, but I realized that maybe I should, like, do those go together or not? Felix, that's your thing. Tell me.
Yeah, I think they all go under like what we called it, social protocols, like all like human interaction with numbers, kind of.
Human math interaction.
Yeah, I mean, my interest in scoring of arguments is outside social protocols. So they're 2 separate things in my.
Yep, that's right. That's fair. So
okay,
scoring itself is really like can be independent of humans, actually, right?
Yeah, or it can involve humans without being unstructured communication or other things. There's ranking algorithms and things like that, and then there's the scoring of arguments, which is tied to the CD model.
Yeah, I think the question is scoring according to an argumentation model versus scoring based on attention. Is that what you're saying, Tim? Scoring.
Yeah, I mean, it's really no. It's scoring of arguments versus scoring of other things, other communication things, because.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think you'd be interested if we were scoring arguments based on attention. I think it's the attention.
Sure, I would.
Versus...
Yeah, I would. An
Okay.
attention-based algorithm to show an
Okay,
argument,
so
to
I'm
raise
wrong.
an argument is important. Yeah.
Okay, so then maybe it's possible to put it under one umbrella, because Felix, if I understand well, and I'm checking here, you don't mind if attention measures are applied to arguments or not. I mean, you're interested in attention measures.
Right.
So let's put it on.
Right, but I'm also interested in talking about scoring of arguments from objective measures or other non-attention based things. So
still, from argument structure, or maybe I should put those under social protocols, and it's understood that.
I mean, we don't have
some of this applies outside of arguments.
We don't have to categorize it perfectly. It will just whatever we need, people will join. Right?
Okay, no, but I have a question. Should that be one or two committees? Like, is the from attention and from argument structure, should that be two committees? Will there be interference between the two? That's
in my mind right now. It's rather separated than together. I think.
So
yeah,
too.
I think from argument, from attention sort of things, it's probably going to be focused on creating an algorithm, an attention-based algorithm, where I might be more interested in the model of scoring.
Okay, fair enough. I'm perfectly, yeah, okay. So I think we have two committees here. So let me, this becomes again one thing, and this becomes its own thing. Can we handle having 4 parallel committees?
I don't fully get the separation, Timothy, because I mean, what do you mean you're interested in the model? I mean, without anything to model, what is a model? You're obviously modeling a domain, right? So what is the domain that you're interested in?
I'm interested in things like designing a pluggable model based on the argument model, and how you can make sure that things can roll up and that sort of thing.
But that is architecture, and what to roll up and when to roll up is fully determined by the domain, what needs rolling up, right? I mean, depending on the domain, are you rolling up like belief expressed by people, like epistemic things? Are you rolling up argument structure? I mean, do you believe it's going to be the same roll-up behavior regardless of the domain?
That is an open question. That's kind of what needs to be explored, right?
But I think one thing I would say, Stephen, to that is, on the one hand, I agree. On the other, I think that for momentum, it's important for us to do in parallel the kind of bottom up from first principle and some of the, okay, let's do some work, experimental work closer to the goal. And in a way, that's what you were saying about experimentations. And so that our experimentation informs the first principles work. So I think it's okay to have some work that makes assumptions about division in layers that may prove to be wrong later, but it will still have learned something from it. And I think there's energy and momentum for doing those, as well as, maybe not with the same people, energy and momentum.
I think that
first
maybe
principle work.
I agree that may be valuable to do, but the risk of premature abstractions, which is what I would call this, is that you've, I mean, if you don't really know whether an abstraction is valid, in this case, whether roll-up is the same for any type of scoring you're interested in, you run the risk of your design may end up being entirely flawed. But as long as you can identify the premises your abstractions are based on, as in, we assume that any type of scoring can be rolled up, and you're aware about those and you test those, as in you critically evaluate whether or not that abstraction holds at a regular interval, then it should be fine, I guess. But I personally never do one without the other. I tend to like follow the domain more and then let abstractions be derived from that.
No, I understand, but I think the reality is we have quite a few different working styles here. And I'm closer to you, but not everybody is. And that's fine.
I mean, I can characterize it like this, and this might help in the discussion for now. I agree. It's better to have practical examples and then see what's needed for the abstraction. And in that sense, maybe just start with the committee that's going to focus on the attention-based algorithm, see what would be interesting to track and how that's designed, and then see how that applies to whatever model we want to build. In parallel, actually, what I would do that I consider abstract, but it's actually the same type of thing, is coming up with an algorithm. But the algorithm I would want to come up with is a roll-up where abstractly, generically, you have a number on different arguments, and it doesn't matter where it came from. It could came from attention. It could be a user score. It could
but already assumptions there.
But I think you can abstractly say that we could build an algorithm where if something is 50% and 100% here, and you can roll up, right?
True, but the implicit abstraction that I'm questioning is not about rolling up numbers. Yeah, sure, but I'm questioning, can that number, is that a correct abstraction for any type of scoring you're interested in? And that's what I'm questioning.
I mean, that would also inform the design of the model, right? If we know, I think what Timothy is saying, that if we know that for ranking we need this kind of numbers, that would influence the design of the model.
But for the record, I don't believe in an abstract rollup, but that's the conversation we need to have. I think that different rollup for different types of links between claims. I made that argument to Bentley, right? He was doing a kind of weighted sum of arguments, and I said, yeah, that's absolutely fine when you're looking at multiple impacts of an action. It has some positive impact, some negative impact. Yeah, sure, do a weighted sum. But if you're looking at reasons to believe, what you need is a max. What's the strongest reason to believe? What's the strongest reason to disbelieve? And the sum doesn't matter. So it depends on the type of link. I don't think it's generic, personally, for what it's worth.
Yeah, there's going to be multiple different. We're going to want to support multiple different. Types.
Right. And that would be more the discussion that I would want to be having. As opposed to this concrete one. But let's go with the concrete one first, so we limit the number of committees, and we'll see what comes out of that, which would be Felix's social protocols.
I said 3 committees as a starting point, as a perfectly arbitrary number. We can have 4. I don't think we can have more than 4, but
I mean, let's start with 3 and see if we have to split.
I think limiting our focus is a good thing, because if I can participate on 1 committee per week, that's pretty good.
Okay, so let's take social. You agree to social protocol as the basis, and then we'll see how we fork the other one. Is that what you said? Good.
I'll just see what comes out of it, and then I'm interested to move on to a discussion of how that matches thoughts on abstract roll-up and that sort of thing that we've talked about before. It would be a touch point, like Stephen said.
Okay. Should we, given that these are the top, I think this is what we're doing right now. I'll put it at the top as far, but it's not. Vocabulary list, I think, can wait.
I would actually say, now that I've said focus is good, that what to me is important is the website, revisiting the website.
Before you arrived, I said something I'm thinking we need to visit at some point is the legal governance structure for maybe CDL, maybe something above CDL, because we all have organizations. And maybe we want a common international consortium structure for.
And there's
our
nothing
work.
bigger we can join, I guess.
There might be. The researching that for me is one of the steps.
Mhm.
I'm not opposed to. I don't think we have to reinvent that wheel, but we may have to, because we need to see if there's something that fits our common focus. We're still trying to define the common focus. But anyway, so my next question is, first, do we have, I'm of course, not surprisingly, in those two committees first. I will be very interested in the social, I said I'd put it nearby. Yeah, I'll be in all committees. Yay, surprise. Is there, first, add your name if it's missing. Let me put the names in common. And this is also in common, actually. And so be sure to put your names. And are there, maybe we should do kind of timing. What's the things what's the best days for people? And then because it's subcommittees, hopefully we'll find days that fit people best.
Or we have them in parallel at the date we already have. But that would mean that you can't join all of them.
I certainly am not happy with parallel.
Yep. Yeah, I understand.
I'm just thinking that it might be better for each committee to kind of hash out their time. I mean, we could do it together here, but
I agree. On the other hand, since I know at least I'm interested in being in many committees, and Tim is interested in at least two.
Yeah, let's take the scheduling offline.
Fair enough. We can do doodles. Okay, does anybody want to head one of the committees?
I mean, I'll do social protocols, I guess.
Okay, I could take the main layers unless Stephen wants to head it. But I'm or co-head.
I think it would be interesting to co-head that, because I know your approach, and you did express some interest in identifying boundaries. We can try to see where we get. Maybe we can have a one-on-one first to see how we could co-head it. If we can find some agreement, then we can do. Otherwise, it's one or the other, I would say.
I'm all for it. So
I think I was. Go ahead.
Yep. I just said,
I was pushing. Oh, sorry. I was pushing the list of tools, but I'm not sure that I have adequate resources. So I mean, I'll kind of head that up if no one else wants to, but I'm open to the floor.
Well, I am interested in that one, but I haven't been part of all the process made so far, and I don't know the status, so I don't think it's appropriate.
I think it would be appropriate for me to tell you where we've been at. I was going to say where I'm at, because there's been some buy-in for some of what I've done and some negative buy-in for it. So I don't know if I can speak for all.
And I think also for that, in the scheduling for that one, I would suggest that our first meeting is just with, joining the OGM meeting if it were not too disruptive to them, and figuring out that coordination first. So maybe that wouldn't be great for Stephen, because I don't know if you've ever worked with the Open Global Mind group.
I have not, and I think in terms of understanding what is out there, it makes sense to broaden the scope. So I think that makes sense.
Pete is very interested in using templates on kind of wiki he's designing. I don't have a strong opinion on this.
I'm just not sure if they're actually still storing the data in a aggregate data
GitHub
format or in the individual pages, but I missed that last meeting. So
yeah, I think Pete could also be persuaded to work on an Airtable thing with Vincent Arena, for example, who would be a good co-candidate for this.
Yeah, and good coordinate with Vincent to see how well we're aligned and if we just want to use their data formats. Or I know we're getting pretty complicated, but we may have, like Mark Antoine's kind of said, we may have gone a little bit more detailed than we need to at this point. I haven't decided yet.
I think we should revisit that list and see if there's any possibility of pruning, or if the list is useful. Yeah, we'll prioritize at least the list. Certainly, there's things in there that are very simple and easy to dispatch, and things that require a lot of understanding. Separating those is certainly useful. So yeah, I'm more interested in setting up the useful categories for the list of tools than in the list of tools themselves myself. So
Yeah,
I'll be more involved at the beginning than
I'm also interested in the outcome of the anthologies, because I expect that to a large degree can guide the discussion on domain layers.
Yes.
And let us agree on terminology later, which we can then add to the vocabulary list.
Yeah. Okay, do we have what other slots? Yeah, I don't know. I almost want to jump to timing because I want us to get started on work on all these.
Just a note, initially I put my name on some of the lists as like a voting mechanism. I'm
Okay.
interested in the domain layers and the social protocols, so I might just step in to see, depending on what my bandwidth is. So
That's
we'll see how that
perfectly
goes.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I would consider myself optional for social protocols. Not totally excluded, but
manipulate your own names. It's a Google Doc.
No, I'm not putting my name on it because I don't want to
Or remove it.
Yeah, we
appropriately.
really
make
should.
promises.
So just to codify that, is we should be posting information about when meetings are happening in the Hangouts channel, and then people can choose what to attend.
Yeah, all that needs to be here on this document is the leader of each, because the rest is like
the rest is
No.
interest. Yeah, no commitment.
Yeah, I was thinking the list is good because I'll know who to send the doodle.
Yeah, it'd be nice to
But
have
that's what
kind
I'm-
of leader participants and then interested.
Yeah. So I'll Stephen and I will try to have a first meeting, and then we'll come up with a doodle, and we'll send the doodle to everybody, and then whoever registers to the doodle is expressing interest. I think that's good enough. And
Right.
Yeah, and you can just put the doodle in the Hangouts channel.
All the doodles in the Hangouts, and everybody just
signs up.
signs up where they want to.
And please, matter of policy, close your doodles so we have not just we don't have to keep revisiting. Oh, what's the highest? And there's an actual doodle termination decision taken. Not everybody is strict with that, and it creates problems. Okay. Bentley, you're in touch with the Fellowship of the Link people. Do you want to maintain?
When you,
It's in the-
because the Vincent and Pete are actually having that discussion in several OGM meetings. Do you think Fellowship of the Link is
It's the one where I heard about it. So get
maybe
Vincent.
I'll reach out to Pete and get his opinion.
Add Matthew Lowry. He's very interested in this.
Yeah. Because it also kind of fits into Flotilla and
I know.
a couple other things. So I'll reach out to Pete and ask. Yeah,
But-
until
but-
someone other says, I'll Mark Antoine, I'll handle the list of tools.
Okay, it's
You don't have
excellent.
to manage too.
No, I won't manage it, but I'll just come to help with making sense of what I've written. And I'll let you take decisions. Okay. Anything else at the agenda today?
I could share what I have because we actually implemented a news aggregator. If you want to see it
Fantastic. Go for it.
now.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's think.
By the way, total side note, do I sound better than usual or not? Because I got a birthday.
Better than last time, yeah.
Oh yeah. You can
There's
hear
less,
the
there was a
difference.
lot of echo previously, and now there's not. So I'm
Excellent.
surprised that mic solved that, unless you're in a different space.
I'm also in a different space, but it's Shure, so it's a proper mic.
Yeah. You see it?
Just need to mount. Yep.
Yes.
So what is this? This is basically a news aggregator that's completely fed by Hacker News. Because we thought about, oh, how can we solve the critical mass problem? And we thought, okay, we just have good content in the first place. So we completely source Hacker News, including votes, and apply our own ranking algorithms on these votes. And what you see, it looks exactly as the Hacker News front page, but the only difference is here's the blue number here, which is the quality score for every. Steven?
Yeah, just a quick question. How are you running this?
It's on Fly.io, it's a small Go service that like crawls.
That
Hacker
can
News
cope
API
with
what?
can cope with the data that's being pushed into Hacker News.
Yeah, it's not much. Hacker News doesn't have that much data. We query it every minute, and then we fetch like between 300 and 400 data points every minute. That's it.
Nice.
Yeah, and this quality score is basically a factor, like how many times more upvotes did the story get than the average story that was on this rank. Kind of. That's how you can interpret it. And yeah. And we're basically trying to approximate attention in a way like, oh, okay, because like on Hacker News, you have this feedback loop, like the higher something is ranked, the more upvotes it gets, the higher it's ranked, and so on. You have this feedback loop, and we're trying to factor this out and only leave quality. And the basic formula is how many upvotes per attention did a story get, right? And this attention is the tricky part. We basically track every story. Oh, how much time did that story spend on individual ranks? And we have like the whole rank history of an individual story, and calculate attention values for each of this time slot. And then we have like a cumulative attention, like how much attention did this story get in total? And then how many votes did it get in total? And that's the ratio. It's a bit simplified, but like that's the main idea.
And what is the sorting here? Because 3.5 is smaller than 4.5.
Yeah, we have
not
similar like Hacker News. We have like an age penalty in there. Like the older something is, the more penalty it gets. So the whole front page is rotating. Oh.
Can you put both front pages side by side?
Yeah, here I have a link. That's like the original Hacker News ranking. I can put that side by side if you want. Here on the right is Hacker News, on the left is ours.
So there's no overlap right now that I can see.
There's this eSIM.
Oh yeah.
Show it in, oh no. Yeah, it's the first. PlayStation 2 architecture is above. It's 4 and 10.
Yeah. Right now our own page is like rotating a bit too fast. So we got something wrong with the age penalty, I guess. We have to investigate a bit more. And also like some coefficients in the formulas are still guesses because the statistical models behind it are very difficult. So yeah, still working on it.
Is the age penalty actually relevant if you already factor that out with your quality score?
You mean like only sorting by quality then and just wait?
I mean, in a way you factor out the age because all the articles have had more attention. So I would presume you somehow factored it out, but then you included it again by presenting a difference. Just what's the rationale for including that?
Including the age penalty, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's that things rotate, that because the whole algorithm only looks at the recent X stories, right? And if something has a very high quality, the question is like, should it last at the top, at the highest rank all the time, or like, should there be others that take the place? And then, yeah, it's kind of a rotation. It's a mix between quality and recency.
But the score would go down regardless, right? The longer it's there.
The longer it's there, yeah. But this number will stay because that's the neutral quality to the story. But like we basically imagine that we divide this number by age, kind of. Right, and then the higher the age, the lower this number, and then it falls down. So that means like some very young stories, like here 41 minutes ago, and also some very good, quite old stories. Not here. So that's something we have to fix.
What's next? Like, how do you know whether this works?
We want to launch it on HN and see what people think. And maybe have some more statistics on like, okay, what's the average quality on our page? What's the average quality on the Hacker News page? And like try to gather some numbers. And then
subjective, I presume.
No, I mean, like we can do calculation with this quality and just say, oh, our page has higher quality than the other one. But like in the end, what counts is subjective.
Yeah, because I mean, you created the quality score.
Yeah. Yeah, and that quality score, as we see, is like very neutral. It's not really subjective, but still, for people to use it, they have to like one side more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we're at.
Cool.
What's your subjective feeling about the new ranking?
It's pretty addictive. So that tells me that it kind of works, because like working on it, you always get distracted by the stories that are there.
More than the ones at the top of the other ranking?
Good question. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's why yesterday I added the original ranking here to have the comparison in the first place. So if we go on the original side, that's really the same. No.
It's clearly the mechanism is very biased on recency, but what attracts attention now? Is there like one thing that's bothered me a lot about a lot of recency-based things is it's kind of feedback loop. It's not necessarily surfacing what's important, but what's already gotten attention.
True.
Of course,
so,
important is, how do you define? But
yeah. So yeah, like the big two flaws that we identified in the Hacker News ranking algorithm is like false negatives. That means like good stories are just overlooked. Yeah. And the second one is like the false positives because of the feedback loop, like overrated stories. And with this approach, because we're not collecting our own votes yet, we can only tackle the false positives, not the false negatives. But once we introduce our own voting, which we want to do, then we can also like tackle the false negatives.
Okay, so you're thinking your system has less feedback loop, positive feedback loop effect.
Yeah, exactly. What we even wanted to do maybe is like on the Hacker News ranking, have like a marker that says like overrated or something like this. right? If
Got it.
something only is highly ranked because of the feedback loop, but not because of the quality, then it's overrated.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that's really helpful. It sure moves fast. I've
does,
been
yeah.
real a few times, and how, yeah, okay. Yeah, it would be interesting to point out the overrated ones to see, do they really feel overrated, and kind of have a blind test with.
I mean, you can see that here, for example, like a story with over 400 points. That's a lot, but it's only 2.4 quality. So that's probably overrated. And if you look at another one that has like quality of 4 and not that many upvotes, there you can see like
This is obviously important. Yeah, that's interesting. That's very helpful, actually.
And then if you go back to our page,
the
Yeah.
quality, I miss like how you get the quality. Is it like an average over all users, or is it an average of users that like clicked to see comments or clicked on?
It's relative to how many upvotes stories receive on certain ranks. Like the quality is basically a factor. Like you get this times many upvotes than average.
1 second. Why is number 7 not at the top? Because it has the highest quality?
Because it's 2 hours old.
Yeah.
That's the time penalty.
Yeah. Which is a bit too strong, but because we measured that our attention curve kind of correlates with age, and therefore like Hacker News has this quadratic age penalty, right? And if we want to have like a similar age penalty, we have to factor out our correlation with age. So right now it correlates with, what was it, h to the power of 0.6, but Hacker News has h to the power of 1.8. So we only multiply h times h to the power of 1.2 in the division.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But what gets me about all of this is that you call it quality, but it's, it doesn't really measure the quality of the actual content of the thing, except in the cases where you have users that click and read and then decide whether or not to upvote, right?
Correct. There's our own definition of quality behind this. Yeah, of course.
And the other thing is, like, this is looking at general appeal, right? Whereas if something's a really good article for a really niche subject, it doesn't get as many upvotes. But that's what Hacker News does in general, right? So it's a Hacker News problem.
The quality is like perceived by the whole community on average.
Yeah.
That means like
what's interesting about this too is also like I can't tell which result is better. I can't tell. And maybe there isn't a clear answer. It would be like, it's hard for me to figure out what would be a clear answer, except maybe using it over the course of months, each one separately or something. But having both options on the Hacker News page seems like it would be interesting, because I would check and see if I like things on one, and then see if I like the things on the other. And
Yep, that was the idea, because like we also couldn't tell, and that's yesterday I implemented this link. Yep. So still a lot to do, but I am very happy that we finally implemented something.
Very, very interesting.
Maybe I'd be interested. I don't skim Hacker News anymore. I haven't had time in a long time, but it might be interesting for me. Send the link, and maybe I'll try going back and forth for a couple of weeks and see, give you feedback on what my feeling.
Yeah. So it's here. And of course, like if we change the age penalty, then higher quality stays on top. We can kind of control it So that like a future idea was like we let people vote on our website and basically calculate the predictive power per user. And people who are like match very well with the community, they just have more predictive power, and their vote has a higher weight. Because then because they're predictive, they like get quicker to the right quality number. Like it converges faster. That was an idea. And also let these people who actually invest the time in the platform, give them because we also could. So the mix of the age penalty and uncertainty of the division, like if there's only one upvote, like what should the quality be? There's some Bayesian averaging in there, and that's also like a factor we can control and like, for example, give high reputation people or high karma people or whatever you call it, a higher quality front page, because they look at more certain stuff and leave the uncertainty to the lower reputation users to figure that out. Stuff like this, lots of ideas.
Well,
that's it, right?
one thing.
I do have a question. We're at time, right? I have one quick question, which is like you're not using any sort of controlled testing on this, are you? Right? Like AI algorithms, you have your test set.
Nope.
So you don't, because you don't right now have an objective measure of quality of the results, right? I mean, you have a quality score, but you don't have a measure that says this set of results is better than that set of results. So you don't have a way to do that sort of thing of tweaking the algorithm and then seeing if you got a better
very hard to do, because it basically says like, oh, we need 100 people and divide them into 2 groups, and they should basically evaluate the story, like the fraction of people who would upvote that story. That could be used as an indicator. But like
No.
You'd have to update you had to score the list of results.
I mean,
you have to score the
I don't think you can test this in a between subjects design, which is what you're describing here, because I mean, quality is a highly subjective thing. So I think the only real way, if you want to run a study, and we can talk more about this, either way, if you want to run a study, you probably should do a pilot first, because 100 is a number you pull out of thin air, but I can expect that with quality is a subjective assessments of high variability, meaning you're going to need a lot of tests most likely in order to show any difference, unfortunately.
right.
Yeah. Maybe quality is the wrong word, because like everybody thinks, oh, quality because the article is good. But what we're saying is just, oh, the community upvoted this more, which is different.
It is different. But what you would want to track really are click-throughs, right? Per user. You show them a page of results
Click
for the
through
first time ever, and they click and see if they.
Yeah, but click through is super prone to clickbait, and it doesn't say at all if people who.
Oh yeah, you've mentioned that before. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I think you probably need to just ask people like which one did you prefer without telling them which one they were looking at, and then trying to come up with some scales that make sense.
You mean which front page or which article?
Yeah, front page.
Which front page? Like you just let them use one for a week and then another for a week, and you let them rate both on some.
Oh, that's something we can definitely do, right? Just serve them a different ranking. Like we can do blind tests here on the page because we control both. Yeah.
Mm.
And even then,
you would need them to get a feel for if they, because you have subjectivity too. Like what happens if someone happens to be looking at the Hacker News page right on the week that we discover alien life, make contact with. It's like, oh, all these articles are fantastic.
Yeah. So you actually would need a snapshot at a given point in time, and then you give that static snapshot to. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard.
No, or just let people ask them every time they visit the page, how do you like the front page today? And then like serve them sometimes this page, sometimes this page.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Over time.
Yeah, so many possibilities. It's all
Yeah.
open source, by the way, all on GitHub.
Yes, I even built it and run it, and it runs fantastically while you were talking.
Nice.
It's easy.
Cool.
So kudos on a good distribution.
And it's all SQLite, in case you're interested.
Cool.
Yeah. And interestingly, like just I guess yesterday when I was working on it, there was a comment on Hacker News again, like, oh, do you think there are like overrated stories on the front page? And then I like tried to say, oh, I have something soon, blah, blah, blah. And then whole discussion spawned. Oh. Let's see.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're at time, and we'll discuss offline for next meeting.
Sounds good. Bye all.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.